Hi, this is Internet Nerd, and what do you have for me today? So the short answer is that AI does not exactly need water, at least not directly. I mean, ChatGPT is not sitting down somewhere drinking gallons of water when you ask it a question. It is the infrastructure that powers AI that actually needs water and not exactly ChatGPT itself. So every time you send a prompt to say Claude, Gemini, ChatGPT, or any AI tool whatsoever, say you're even generating an AI image or video whatsoever, your request is sent to a data center. Now think of a data center as this very huge, giant warehouse that is filled with computers, right? And inside these buildings, we have very strong, powerful computer chips, and like there are thousands of them. So what these computer chips do is that they work around the clock to process requests. And of course, as you know now, they do this for millions of users because we have millions of users, millions of people using AI all around the world right now. So all that computing, that is like when you're processing all this requests or stuff from people around the world using AI, everyone like me and you using AI every second, all that computing generates heat, and a lot of heat actually. Think about it like, say, when you're running a very heavy software or whatever on your laptop, it gets warm, it gets really, really hot, if you know. So that is also similar to the case of these facilities where all that computing and activity and all that stuff, it generates so much heat. Now imagine having to do this, across millions of people, millions of requests. That is why this heating thing has become a very huge, problem when it comes to running a data center or running data centers. And if this equipment gets so hot, it could cause systems to shut down and even go as far as destroying some hardwares. That is why a lot of data centers need cooling systems. Now, some data centers get to use air cooling and some use liquid cooling, and many use water for cooling because water is about the most efficient way to absorb and carry away heat. So when people say AI uses water, or when they complain about AI using water, what they're really saying or what they actually mean is that it is the infrastructure that is powering AI that actually consumes all that water, not exactly AI itself, which, I mean, technically it is, but like this is like the entire thread, if you get what I mean. And that is how we ended up in this very interesting situation where one of the most interesting technologies ever known to man is now being embroidered in this, debates that has to do with one of humanity's oldest resources, that is water. Because, when you think about like AI, water, what is the correlation? So this is basically the entire connection, because once AI needs computing, which is a no-brainer, AI of course needs computing generates so much heat, and all that heat would require cooling, and cooling would require, or effective cooling would require water. So that is the entire thread, and I hope that answers your question. Let's have the next one. Yeah, sure, happy to. That's a good question, actually. Most people use the internet without having any idea or being sure where it actually resides. We often throw around terms like the cloud. We think it's just something that is existing somewhere in the air. We would, stream music from the cloud, would send or save files to the cloud, we would use AI from the cloud. But the truth is that the cloud is not exactly the cloud. It's not this mythical thing in the air. It is actually buildings. Lots of buildings actually. And these buildings are called data centers. Like I said earlier, think of data centers as this giant warehouse of computers, thousands of powerful computers. And these computers would work around the clock processing requests from millions of people around the world. Every time you watch a YouTube video, or you send an email, or you watch or stream something on Netflix, or you ask ChatGPT or any AI or whatever to do anything for you, there's a very huge chance that there is a data center, or there are data centers involved somewhere in that process. However, not all data centers are the same. Some are designed to just store information. Some are designed to run websites and applications, and lately some are being increasingly designed to power AI, to basically cater to our AI needs. And these AI data centers contain a large number of specialized computer chips, which you call GPUs. That's an acronym for graphics processing units. GPUs are usually very good at handling the massive calculation that AI systems usually require. So when you ask ChatGPT or any AI stuff to do anything for you, the response or whatever you get is not automatically just appearing from your phone or your laptop. Your request is instead traveling through the internet to one of these facilities or data centers where all these computers are working together to generate a response and process your request. So that is why data centers have become this very huge part of the discussion when it comes to AI. Think of it like if AI is the brain, a data center or data centers are the body. And without data centers, none of this AI things is going to work. So hope that answers your question. Next. Because computers generate heat and AI requires a lot of computing power. I mean, think about your own laptop, for instance. Have you ever had about like 30 tabs open? You've watched a video, you've joined a Zoom call, you've had applications running simultaneously and all that stuff. If you notice or if you remember this occurrence, you see that your laptops would start getting really warm or very hot at some point, right? So that is your computer basically working hard. That is basically how it is with these data centers when they host this thousands of computers and then you have this influx of requests from millions of people around the world. It basically heats up. And don't forget, unlike the other types of data centers, as I had mentioned in the previous question, where, like I said, some data centers are designed to store information, some data centers are designed to run applications or websites, right? These AI data centers are not just checking emails or browsing the internet. They are basically processing requests from millions of people around the world at the same time. So think of every ChatGPT prompt, every AI generated image or video, any AI integrated whatever, AI assistants, all that stuff. They all need computation, and computation creates lots of heat. Actually, for data centers, the biggest concern is not about even storing data. It's actually about managing heat. Like I said earlier, if this equipment starts to get too hot without any consideration for cooling them, it could lead systems to shutting down, and in very extreme cases, it could damage hardwares even, like it could damage these computers. Just like, again, like I said, think about your own laptop and like just think about the dangers that has to do with heat, overheating and heating and heating, and you not actually having to, cool it, of which in our case, because of the kind of the power of our own devices, in our case, maybe we'll close all the tabs and just let it be for a bit. But with data centers, the ways of having to cool these devices or these computers are quite different. So keeping these facilities cool is not even an option, it's actually an essential. So that is why data centers are investing very heavily in cooling systems. As I mentioned earlier, some facilities are using air cooling models such as like very powerful fans and air conditions, while some are resorting to liquid systems to sort of carry away all this heat. So which is why water has very much entered the conversation, because water is by far proven to be the most effective way of cooling. It is so much more efficient and better than the air cooling system or the air cooling model. That is why a lot of these facilities have been doubling down on water to enable their systems run very smoothly and more efficiently. So that is why this entire AI water debate is not exactly about AI itself. It's not exactly protest against AI per se. It's basically about the challenge of having to cool this massive infrastructure that powers AI. I hope that's clear now. So next question. So now the exact amount will depend on the data center itself, where it is located, the weather, and what cooling technology it is using. So there is not exactly a universal figure per se, but I can tell you that some large facilities use as much as thousands, if not millions of gallons per day. Yes, per day. So when you're using ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, or any AI thing, it doesn't feel like you're exactly using water. It just feels like you're running some, system or whatever. And, you get a response and you go about your day, right? But behind the scenes, these facilities are working overtime to stay cool. And, cooling at that level would require a huge amount of resources, which in this case is water. So now to put some things into perspective and to not be so alarmist or sensationalist, data centers are not exactly like the major consumers of water in most regions, if we're being honest. We have sectors like agriculture, energy production, and even population growth that actually also really use water, if not more than data centers do. It's not like data centers are getting all this, heat, no pun intended, all this, chatter for their current usage, but it's more of a concern for future possibilities as AI is getting more embedded in our everyday use. For instance, obviously it will mean that the infrastructure that is needed to cater to that level of demand has to be scaled up. I mean, as we all know, AI is growing at an incredible rate, and as AI is growing, these companies are building more infrastructures to meet with that level of growth and demand. And more infrastructure, of course, means more servers, and more servers would mean more heat, and more heat will often require more cooling. So this is not a conversation about the current or present day use of water consumption or so. It's really about future concerns, because as AI doubles or triples, which is, as we can see, very much bound to happen in the next couple of years, and billions of people start to rely on it, right? What happens to the infrastructure that is required to, meet or match this demand? And what happens to the resources that is being used to manage this infrastructure or to keep it running, basically? So that is the question that local communities, tech companies, and even the government are really trying to answer right now. I hope that answers your question. Next. So for many communities, the concern is not exactly that data centers are using water. It is really more about where it is being used. So let me explain. Over the last few years, places like Arizona, Texas, and some parts of Virginia have become this major hub for data center development. And tech companies love and prefer these places for a number of reasons, because land is quite affordable there. Power infrastructure already exists, and there's very strong internet connectivity there. And also local governments in these areas are quite eager to attract investment. So it does make sense. So naturally, these tech companies have been building a lot of data centers in these regions. I'm going to do a video that maybe shows us the regions that has like the most data centers, maybe also in existence, and the ones in development as well, just so you have an idea what I'm talking about. But then the issue is that many of these areas where these data centers are being developed are already like having some sort of water concern on a sort of general level before now. Some are having some recurring drought situations. Some are experiencing some rapid increase in population. So it's basically about having to think of managing these resources over time, right? And then now they have data centers to add to their list of worries. So that is why when a new data center is launched in a particular region, residents of that region do be asking like, where is the water going to come from? Like, how much water would this facility use? And like, what happens in cases of droughts? And like, what happens also when, say, one data center becomes 10? So that's really what's causing all this brouhaha. It's not really about like what facilities exist in front of them right now. It's pretty much about what comes after that, and then after that, and then after that. Just like I said, when one data center becomes 10 and 50 and 20, what becomes of those resources, which is like water? You get what I mean? So that is why we have all that concern from the communities. Because remember, we're in the AI boom right now. The demand for AI is insane, and you bet it's only going to get crazier in the next couple of years. And companies have been upping the ante, building more and more facilities. So you bet it's going to get crazier. So that is why for this resident, it's really not about just one data center. It's really about what is the cumulative impact of multiple data centers over time as the demand for AI becomes more and more intense. And so that is why you might be seeing all this, noise and public hearings and debates over permits and scrutiny over, large projects and all that stuff. That is why. So it's not to say that these people or these communities are against AI or technology. It's really about that they're being asked to now like host the physical infrastructure that has to power the entire digital economy, and it's really worthy of concern. And it's fair to really think about like, where do we draw the line, really? So I think these conversations are really worth having. I mean, they just want to understand what this entire thing would mean for the resources that they depend on, because I mean, these communities also they depend on water, and they, as much as possible, kind of have to protect that, because when there are no right checks in place, things could just go haywire for them as well. So I hope that answers your question. Let's have the next one now. The honest answer is not exactly. Yeah, not exactly, actually. I mean, a lot of headlines make it look like data centers are single handedly causing this water crisis, but the reality is a lot more complicated. I mean, water scarcity is typically defined by different factors, right? From climate to agriculture to population growth to urban development to water management policies. All these factors would typically affect water challenges across communities long before AI became a thing even. So if you look away from the sensationalist, alarmist type of content, being bandied about by a lot of creators, just maybe trying to evoke fear or this sort of reaction, what is being discussed in the real world is not to say that data centers are the sole cause of water shortages. What is being discussed is, like I mentioned earlier, it's really about cumulative impact. Again, it's not exactly about just one data center. It's really about when it becomes 5, 10, 20, right? And like, because with each facility comes a very huge dependence or pressure on the resources, which is water. For every new data center, there is a layer of dependence on existing resources that is kind of already under pressure from the other factors as I've mentioned, climate, agriculture, and the likes, and then the existing data centers. So it's more of like, I'd say, a cumulative impact and not like a thing of just singling out data centers as this devil, towards communities. So let's bring this home right now. Think about, say, living in a city that has sort of huge traffic problems like where I currently live in, right? When you add a new car, when you add just one car to the road, it might not be that much of a big deal, right? But think about when you now bring in an influx of cars, like say thousands of cars, and bring in onto that road that sort of already has that pressure when it comes to traffic things, then it becomes a cause for concern and people start to pay attention. You get what I mean? And start to ask questions, of course. So that's also the case here, right? Where communities are not exactly asking about, what is right now. It's really about, what could the future spell, as these companies are really projecting that, AI, not even just the companies projecting, we can see that AI is pretty much the future. Like, I can't even imagine what the next 5 years is going to be like. So it really begs for the question, really, like, how much infrastructure can communities really support over the long term? It's not something simplistic as just saying, oh, AI is causing drought. Nah, it's really that, like, how much infrastructure can communities support over the long term. Personally, I like to think this conversation is bigger than just water, right? Which is like the essence of this channel, where we're basically exploring, technology, internet systems, and how it intersects with human lives. And this is really about just looking at the physical footprint and implication of the AI boom itself. Because like I said earlier in the previous question, we talk about the cloud. We think all this stuff exists somewhere that is, that we can't touch or we can't feel or whatever. But, when you take a closer look, that just like this content or this video is saying, you can basically understand how much physical, involvement there is to, the AI boom, and just how wild it could be as AI becomes a very huge part of our everyday life. I hope that answers your question, or I hope that actually clarifies, these things, and also like sort of puts a lot of this sensationalist takes to rest. Next question. Because as I've hinted before, AI is going to become a huge part of our everyday life. Because when you think about it, years prior, like years ago, you don't have that many people using AI as much, right? Today, we have millions of people using all sort of AI products, from ChatGPT to Gemini to Claude to any AI assisted whatever, and we are using it every day, like literally every second, right? From writing emails to planning trips to doing assignments to doing research. It's just, like I said, at this point, I don't even know. I'm not even talking about projection that AI is going to be a part of our everyday life. I think it's pretty much here already. We can see it, and it's only going to get crazier in the next couple of years. Like, do you know how crazy it is that people don't even write code anymore? Like, they don't even have to write code anymore. They use AI for that, and it works so well. People don't have to like build apps from scratch anymore. They use AI for that, and it works so well. And this is just the beginning, even, because in the nearest future, you're going to see AI being integrated in your search engines, our smartphones, office softwares, even customer service interactions. I think I saw a product that sort of has has elements of that, and even our cars is going to have that. And as that future becomes reality, as we inch towards that future, the amount of computing power that is required to enable all this run properly is going to be crazy. That is why these tech companies are investing billions and billions of dollars into AI infrastructure. And of course, as I've mentioned in the previous video, anyone who gets to build the most infrastructure gets to own the AI boom. So all this building data centers and the likes is not just for today, it's really for, future projection, of which, if I would tap a very popular saying, the future is now. So I'll just run the thread again, just so it's at the fore of your mind and it's just sort of etched in your memory, right? So every AI request, every new AI user, every existing AI user generates computing demand. More computing demand requires more servers. More servers now requires more data centers. More data centers requires more electricity. More electricity then generates more heat, and then more heat would require more cooling to function. And of course, what do you cool with? You cool with water. That is a chain once again. If you want me to, I don't know how I can help you guys like have that in mind, just so it is etched in your memory, but I'm very sure I've sort of repeated this so much in this video that at this point you should probably be reciting it in your sleep or something. But yeah, that's about it. I hope that answers your question. Now let's move on to the next question. I think this is like the last question. Yeah, let's have it. LOL, not you putting me on the spot like that. So I think first thing is like, it's very interesting that it has to take water for us to start confronting or addressing the reality of things. For the longest time, we've talked about the internet as this mythical, weightless thing that exists, again, like I said, somewhere above or so that we can touch, right? We refer to internet, or we speak of the internet like this thing that exists separately from the physical world. We say things like the cloud, we say digital products or digital services, virtual services. We say this thing like, is this, again, like it's just so weightless, right? So for one, I really love this entire topic and this entire discourse because it really makes us realize that internet is not as abstract as we think it is. Internet is largely physical. It exists in physical buildings. It runs on cables. It runs on servers. It runs on power grids. It runs on cooling systems that needs physical resources, to function, like water, as you can see. So I think a lot of people are at first stunned at the fact that, wow, so you mean that digital systems have to depend on physical resources to function? That is news. Correct. Like, what do you mean the digital world is not as detached from the physical world as we're thought all this while? Everyone is losing their minds. I'm trying to pick my words carefully, okay? I mean, it's not lost to me that AI is an integral part of our lives. I mean, every time we ask AI to do anything for us, I want us to first realize that we're not just, consuming software, we're also like, consuming infrastructure, right? But this entire issue is not exactly black and white, right? There are gray areas. I do not think the answer is to stop building data centers. I also do not think the answer is to disregard the concerns of communities. I mean, both sides of the divide are raising very valid points. As much as technology needs infrastructure, communities also reserve every right to understand how this infrastructure also relies on resources that they, the communities, depend on. And as I've mentioned, it's not even a debate of whether or not AI is going to be a part of our everyday life. Definitely it's going to be a part of our everyday life. And if it's going to be a part of our everyday life, or as it's becoming a part of our everyday life, then definitely conversations like, electricity, water, land, sustainability and all that stuff is very valid. These are not just side conversations, right? It is actually like the main thing. It's a main conversation to be had. Because I mean, the future of AI, contrary to what a lot of people think, a lot of people would think that the future of AI is going to be determined by building smarter models or better algorithms. But the essence of content like this, and why we are doing what we're doing here, is to make you understand that the future of AI is also going to be dependent on how well the physical world can support the infrastructure that is needed to meet this AI demands or AI needs, right? But hey, that's just me, man. What do you think from what we've explained so far? And I hope you actually understood everything we've explained. I mean, should communities just sit and embrace all this infrastructure that is needed to power AI, or should there be limits, to how much of physical resources we allocate to digital systems? Please maybe do well to put your thoughts in the comment section also. Very much appreciated. And if you do have any question for the internet nerd to see to, please do well to drop them anywhere you can drop them, via email, via the comment section, anywhere. I'm very happy to, unpack all of that with you. And if you do have any contrary opinions to this, please also do share. I'm very happy to learn from you as much as you're learning from us as well. So yeah, I hope this was worth it for you, and see you in our next one.